Okay, so this story is a little older now, being like about 10 days ago. Screen Rant, ran a story on Wolverine where he should be canceled for his toxic masculinity. And it talks about also how they have curtailed his toxic masculinity recently to kind of show what the changing times are. And let's dive into it because I'm gonna go through the article from Screen Rant. Now, it's just for me, it's when people don't understand characters and how they're supposed to be written. And I understand sometimes when it's a little too much. I get that, right? When you're like, oh, that went a little too far. Maybe we shouldn't have wrote that in that way. But to say that to curtail his toxic masculinity because he's a man's man, right? Like he smokes, he's hairy, he's burly, he's unfiltered. If everybody and every character was exactly the same, or fell into a spectrum where you could not get out of the boundaries of, right? Everybody has to be in that similar space. You could only incrementally get to a certain point before you can't pass anymore, right? Then what is the point of writing anything, right? Because you can no longer have super flawed characters because there are super flawed people. Just turn on the TV right now, turn on, the news, and you're gonna see that even the world leader right now, or the leader of the free world, is super flawed, right? Without trying to get into politics, what I'm saying is, as Americans, we chose, and I say we, I'm not trying to play politics, but as a country, we chose a very, very flawed man and people into power, whether they were convicted, whether you believe it or not, whether, of crimes, they're on video and on tape saying crazy things about women. We still pick them as being the leaders of our country. Hence, people gravitate. I say that to say people gravitate towards flawed people, towards flawed characters, even if it's crazy. Like, yo, that is insane. That's the point at times. Sometimes I get it. You don't have to write certain things. But here in Screen Rant, is the tag title is Wolverine is Marvel's most controversial hero and should have been canceled ages ago. All right, look, we're gonna go into it. We're gonna read some, right? We're gonna read some, and it's just it's hilarious. All right, so here we go. Wolverine may be the X-Men most popular superhero, but frankly, Logan is not a good person. With some of the hero's actions being so controversial, they should have gotten him kicked out of the X-Men decades ago. Wolverine is written to be a highly complex character. True, that is true. But it's worth acknowledging that some of his past behaviors are unacceptable by today's standards. Yes, and they should keep being that way because making you uncomfortable as a reader should be the point with Wolverine. Right now, we're Captain America with Wolverine. Although you could write a Captain America story that can make you uncomfortable outside of his normal scope, right? Since Wolverine's introduction in the Incredible Hulk 180, part of the appeal of the hero has been his tough as nails attitude, but Logan's bad attitude has often veered into toxic masculinity, and this can be seen in how he treats his teammates and women in general. Yes, people like that exist, and you have to deal with people like that in real life, in the army, in the navy, in the marines, in the government, at your workplace, your boss, anybody. It could be anybody. More than likely, you're gonna meet people like this. Erasing them from history doesn't then make everything better, right? They're there, and they should be there in literary culture, right? Let's keep going because it just gets better, right? Okay, here we go. Wolverine's past behavior was so controversial, Marvel should have canned him a long time ago. Logan's poor attitude was a major problem for the X-Men. Here's a quick excerpt. James, you look well. What are you doing here? Well, I'm working here now. I thought we agreed never to see each other again. You're on this team? Yes, I am. Oh, right. In New Avengers number 7 by Michael Bendis, it is implied that Wolverine and Squirrel Girl used to be a couple, which is a comfortable age gap considering Squirrel Girl was a college student at the time Wolverine was over a century old. This implication gets even worse when Squirrel Girl later hits on Daredevil and he instantly rejects her because he is uncomfortable with her young age. Okay, let's dissect this a little bit. Wolverine is over a century old. Every woman he meets, it's going to be underage for him. Whether she's 60, 80, 20, 25, 30, doesn't matter. He will be leaps and bounds older, right? The reason why it makes sense that Daredevil feels uncomfortable is because Daredevil is a mortal. He has a finite time on Earth, and there is a built-in moral guide for him, because he knows that, yes, in comparison to Squirrel Girl, also is not immortal. She has a time frame that is probably the same as a human. Yes, I am older. I shouldn't be with her. And Wolverine cannot help it. Wolverine will always be Wolverine, and he will always be somewhat almost immortal. He will be 400 years old. It doesn't mean that he can't fall in love or like a 25, 30, 40-year-old. It doesn't make sense, right? You can't, can you build that into a character? Yes, but write that character outside of Wolverine. That is who Wolverine is. He cannot help that, because he's a man after all. And he has gone after Jean Grey, who's not a teenager. He's gone after Storm, who's not a teenager. And he has really not gone after teenagers romantically, except in one comic, and we're gonna get to that. We're gonna discuss whether that was appropriate or not, because you could say it wasn't. You could say it wasn't. This uncomfortable attraction to younger women also extends beyond Earth 616 universe, because the Ultimate Spider-Man 66 to 67 Wolverine attempts to sleep with a 15-year-old Mary Jane after he and Peter Parker have swapped bodies. Jean Grey initially swapped their bodies to stop him from hitting her, but it backfired immensely and made Wolverine look like a creep twice over. Okay. So now let's take a look at that. Let's take a look at that.
When Logan and Peter switch bodies, Logan tries to sleep with Mary Jane. Waking up in Peter's body, Logan finds MJ at his door, ready to walk him to school, and she kisses him. Elsewhere, Peter wakes up in Logan's body and, shocked by his reflection, accidentally snickets his arm. Logan tries wall climbing but falls on a bystander. Peter tells Logan not to hurt people in his body and to go to school. Logan attends school while Peter gets caught in a police chase, ending when the criminal's vehicle crash lands on top of him. The police demand Peter drop his claws, to which he can't. In jail, Peter calls the X-Man.
Is this kind of creepy so far? Yes, it is, but we're going to talk about that in a minute.
Telling Kitty Pryde about the switch. She finds it hilarious. Logan breaks Peter out of jail, and after a fight with Shocker, the X-Men arrive. Jean Grey confesses to switching their minds as a punishment for Logan continually hitting on her. She switches their minds back, and later on when Peter apologizes to MJ in case he was a jerk today, MJ then asked him to not do what he tried to do today till they got older. Subscribe.
Okay, is that creepy? Yes. Is that weird? Yes. Is that uncomfortable? Yes. Should have been written? Maybe not. Maybe we could have dealt. Maybe that was lowbrow writing in a sense, right? It's a freaky. You could have done the Freaky Friday thing. You could have even done a funny spoof on a kiss, because she didn't think obviously that he's Wolverine. But blame Michael Bendis, not the character. See, these characters don't exist. Yes, we create them and we write rules for them and things that they should abide by, moral standards, moral guideposts, things like that. And then we tell every other writer, this is who this character is, right within that scope. Take it as far as you can within that scope. Michael Bendis obviously did that, took it as far as he could. Should he have done that? We could argue, no, he shouldn't have done that. That was a little creepy. Let's blame Michael Bendis. The article should say, hey, these writers who are writing Wolverine in a weird way should be looked at. Because yes, while he is this and this and this, there's no need to take it that far. To say I want to bring Logan's actual character's description, reel it back because it makes no sense. It's not for today's time. That's stupid. It is exactly what we need right now. And that's why Marvel's in shambles, because they're trying to appease only allow few. It's only allow few they're trying to appease. They're not. This doesn't scream for the majority. And then this right here, you see, this is the whole Jean Grey thing where she was dressed for a gala. Her dress was too long. She complained about it. He ripped it. She said it was too short. He made a joke about it. Now you could say he intentionally did it, or you could have said it. It just happened to rip too short. And eventually she got mad, like, why did you make it that short? And he just laughed about it. You're implying that he did it on purpose. Nowhere in there says that he actually did it on purpose. It could have ripped short if this was a real life scenario, right? It could rip shorter. And a guy would make a joke about it. You'll be fine. Or whatever. That's what Wolverine is. That's not creepy. That's just two adults, right? Here, you see another one where they make no mention of him watching Black Widow undress in the back of a car, and it makes it creepy because he's known as a child. Okay, Another point where we could go too far, maybe, probably, if that's still the canon in this issue, and also take it up with the writer and call out the writer, because the writer has to make these characters don't exist; they don't write themselves. The writer, right? But they don't mention things like him as, when he was a mentor. They don't mention that at all. Now we can go down here, and it ends with Wolverine is intentionally to be written to be deeply flawed, yes. With difficult past, yes. But his sad origin story should not by no means validate his actions against his friends and love interests. In recent years, Marvel has curtailed his more unpleasant traits, such as his toxic masculinity, showing how attitudes have changed, and this kind of behavior is perceived in different ways, albeit with a long road still ahead to travel. As examples above, Wolverine is lucky he wasn't canceled years ago or even decades ago. And I didn't notice that a woman wrote this. And not that that has to do anything to do with it, but obviously she's looking at it through the lens of a woman. And I get that. But you have to also understand that it's not the character in of it itself. Toxic masculinity for the character is not a problem. If you want to say anybody is at fault, is actually the writers. But they shouldn't stop taking his masculinity and who he is as far as they can take it. That is what makes Wolverine. That is truly what makes Wolverine. And, you don't mention when he was like I said, quick examples, a mentor to Jubilee, a mentor to Kitty Pryde, involving teams where he's led them, helped, his clone, which happened to be a female, X-23, and helped her be who she is. He didn't hit any of these people, right? So some writers can smartly write him and still within that toxic nastiness. You're saying it's nasty and toxic, which is not. It's just, and even if we want to keep it at the words toxic masculinity, it shouldn't be erased. It should still be written because it makes us uncomfortable and it gives us a juxtaposition to another character, to another plight. It causes problems within the dynamic of a team, a book, a story that you can play off of. That's just the short-sightedness of what writing is supposed to be. Sometimes gets into the best judgment of what books should be. Not just books and comic books in general, media in general that we consume as entertainment. But anyway, let me know down below, what do you think? Do you think this writer is on point? Do you agree with her? Do you agree that he should have been canceled and or he should be changed entirely to fit today's standard? Let me know in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next video, and I'm out. Peace, guys.